Hey everybody, welcome back to another WVGunsNGoats video, and I've got two really interesting rifles to show you. The really interesting thing about these rifles is they were never released to the public. These are two Remington rimfire rifles that were a victim of Remington's bankruptcy. The first one is more of a test lab prototype rifle, and the second one is more of a finished product that probably would have been shown off at SHOT Show about 2020 had Remington not gone out of business in that same time frame. We'll look at the prototype first, then we'll look at the finished product. I'll show you all the interesting features that they had put in these rifles. Now, we will not be shooting these rifles unless this video gets a ton of views, because I'd like to make this video as a documentation that these rifles exist. However, if they break, if I was to shoot them, well, I'd be out of luck because they are prototypes. There's really no parts for them. But if this video does blow up, I'll take it out and film myself putting about 10 rounds through it so we have it documented being fired here on the internet. So before we get into looking at these two rifles, how about you go ahead and headbutt that subscribe button to join the herd here at WV Guns and Goats. So here we have the Remington Yellowhammer prototype. This is one of 5 that were produced for Remington. Now, my information I'm going to give you came from a gentleman who worked in Remington's new product division when they were developing this rifle, all the way up until Remington went out of business. Now, he said that they had set out in about 2013 to improve the 597 to compete better with the Ruger 1022. Remington would sell about 100,000 597s in a good year, and Ruger would sell that many 1022s in a bad year, so they knew that they had to improve the 597 to make it more competitive with the 1022. And they originally set out to make it take rotary magazines, just like the 1022 did. However, I'm not sure if somewhere along the line they went astray or if they originally designed it to take 1022 magazines, because the magwell here will not accept a 1022 magazine. It's a much larger magazine, kind of like a 1022 Magnum magazine. Now, when they were developing this rifle, this is one of the 5. This is one of the 3 test lab rifles, and there were 2 made for focus groups. He said their goal with these test lab rifles was 50,000 rounds without issues, and then they could move on to the next stage. However, every time they'd start and get through their testing, somebody would come up with a better idea. Hey, let's make this rifle do this. Hey, let's make it do that. And every time they changed the design, they had to start that testing over again. I think one of the changes was they wanted this to be multi-caliber because this receiver is marked multi. And then I don't know what other changes they wanted to make to it, but they made enough that over time it just kept getting delayed and delayed further, and then Remington went out of business before this even came to market. Now, when it comes to the markings on this gun, they're very interesting. It's marked Genesis Plastic Solutions out of Jeffersonville, Indiana. It's not actually marked Remington on the receiver here. It is marked Yellowhammer, as that was the original working name for it. It's marked Caliber Multi, and the serial number lets me know that this was produced in 2017 and was number 4 out of those 5 rifles. So let's go ahead and look at the really interesting features that this rifle has, and then we'll go and look at the more finished product. Let's look at the Yellowhammer from the front to the back here. 18-inch tapered profile barrel. We got a fixed front sight there and your standard Remington rear sight. It looks like a sight from an 870 or a Remington 700 BDL. However, it is missing the rear sight leaf, but looking like one of those standard sights, I'm pretty sure that I could easily find a sight leaf for it. The first quirk about this gun is right here. Now, there is a sling mount molded into the stock right here at my finger. However, if you wanted to mount something to this gun, there is a pick rail section hiding right under this little cover right here. So you don't have to have an overly tactical looking stock to have a pick rail attachment point. And then if you don't want to look at it, you can just slide the cover right back on there and it's covered up and you never really know it was there. Now, coming back here to the receiver, you got 4 holes on top of it, drilled and tapped. It is a pretty wide receiver for a rimfire, and I think that's because they wanted to make this a multi-caliber rifle. Now we'll lock the bolt to the back. What we have to do is pull this to the rear and pull out on it. And now the bolt handle is locked to the rear of the receiver. It also has a last round bolt hold open feature on it. And the next interesting thing about this rifle is the mag release. It's actually right here. The front of the trigger guard, so when you're shooting, just push your finger forwards, and that will release the magazine from this gun right here. Just like that. And you can see it falls out easy for quick mag changes. And it does have a last round bolt hold open on it. Now coming back here, we have a Remington R embossed in the stock. And another thing about this gun being a prototype, this fire control group housing right here is 3D printed and does feature a standard Remington push button safety. Now back to the stock here, we have a very nice thin pistol grip, so smaller hands could get around this pistol grip right here. And we have an adjustable stock without being a super tactical stock. Now this painter's tape is because this butt pad doesn't really have anything holding it on the inside here. If I take this tape off, the butt pad would fall off of this rifle. To adjust this stock, however, there's a button right here, and there's one on either side of the stock. You squeeze them together, and then you can slide your stock forward and rearward to fit your length of pull. So you don't have to have something like an adjustable M4 stock on here. It's got adjustment built into it. So some pretty interesting features on the yellow hammer here. Okay, I'm going to disassemble the Remington yellow hammer, and it is only held together by this one Allen head screw right here. I'm going to take that out and I'll show you inside of this yellow hammer. With the stock removed, we can now see the receiver and the fire control group housing right here. This pin spacing may look familiar to you if you're familiar with the AR-15. We have 2 pins right here in the receiver, and we also have the 2 pins right there. We have a 3rd pin right here and a pivot pin for the mag release to pivot on. If we look at the bottom of the receiver, this is where the screw that holds it into the stock goes, and right here is a retainer for the barrel. This was designed to have a interchangeable barrel system on this firearm. The next thing we can do is we can remove these pins, and I'll grab a punch here and take those out. Well, I don't really have a punch. I have an Allen key. First pin out, and the second pin out of the gun. And, well, the fire control group unit housing just kind of falls out of there. And then we can look inside the receiver here. We can see a good bit of wear inside the receiver because this was a test lab rifle. And we have a recoil buffer right here at the back of the receiver. Now, with those pins out of the receiver, I should be able to take the bolt and everything out of this gun. But I want to show you the inside of the fire control group housing here. And look at that. This looks really familiar, doesn't it? We'll let this go forwards. Down inside there, that looks to me like a modified AR-15 fire control group. The hammer looks a little bit different than a standard AR-15 hammer, but the trigger disconnector, well, the trigger's shaped a little bit differently to come back this far instead of being more of a vertical trigger here. So I'm not sure if this would have been compatible with actual AR triggers, but they were definitely basing the fire control group components off of the AR-15 in this gun here. So let's see if we can get the bolt assembly out. We slide it so far back, and we have the charging handle right here that pops out, allowing us to slide the bolt and buffer assembly out of the rear of the receiver. So there it is, the bolt setup for the Yellow Hammer / 519. So there's definitely enough room there for this to have a Magnum version. And we can look in the receiver now and see some more of that wear from this gun being test fired so much. So that's everything when it comes to the internals of the Yellow Hammer / 519. Next up, we'll take a look at the 519. And here it is, the Remington Model 519, Model 519, whatever you want to say it. That's what's marked on the left side of the receiver. Now, the serial number indicates that this is number 50. And some of the things that this have that set it apart from the prototype, well, we have a 16-inch heavy threaded barrel right here. We have a Picatinny rail scope mount on here. And then we have this flat dark earth stock. As you can see, there was no cover on this rifle when I got it. You can see the pick rail was kept from the prototype. One of the things that wasn't kept on this from the prototype was the adjustable stock. Now, this does not have the buttons. It does not slide forward and back. It is just a fixed stock right here. It does have the hardware to hold the butt pad on, but it does not have that adjustability that the prototype has. Now, this keeps the same magazine from the prototype. They are interchangeable, and this is more of a finished product right there. Now, they did change the magazine release on this gun. It no longer comes back pretty far under the trigger guard. It is just forwards here. And the fire control unit housing on this gun is an injection molded piece. It is not a 3D printed piece on this finalized model right here. Now, the thing about this gun is when I got it from the seller, they had stated that this was the only one that they had with a flat dark earth stock. I have seen a black stock, and I've seen photos of an OD green stock as well. And this was the only one that had a sub 18-inch barrel on it. So that makes this a pretty special rifle, besides being never released to the public. Would this have been something that you would have bought for your collection? What do you think about the features that this rifle would have brought to the market? Let me know down in the comments section. And thank you for joining me to take a look at these unreleased Remington rifles. This has been another WV Guns and Goats video. And as always, if you're not out there having fun shooting, well, what are you doing?